If I were to describe Devil May Cry 3 in one word, it would be extreme. DMC3 is a game that's super over the top. The combat, the difficulty, the setting and characters, even the name is pretty ridiculous. What are we, some kind of Devil May Cry? 3? Dante's Awakening? Special Edition? Yeah, fucking right. This philosophy the game has of pushing the envelope as far as it can possibly go bleeds into almost every aspect of its design. And I don't know if that's good, I don't know if that's bad, but I'll tell you what I do know for sure. It's in your face. And I'm here to talk about it.
Let's start the party!
Like any good review, we'll start by recapping the game's story. Rather, that's what I was going to do, but then I remembered that I love myself and I deserve so much better. It's a Devil May Cry game. There's not much to say in terms of the actual plot. Bad guy does bad thing because he is bad. Dante fights his brother a bunch of times. Girl who hates him at beginning, likes him at end. Beep boop beep, this sounds like a reprint. It's no Shakespeare, I'll tell you that much. But that's completely fine. It didn't need to be, because the draw of the game's story for me didn't come from some arbitrary level of narrative complexity. The draw for me came from the characters.
Go! Woo! Die!
Well, character. This guy. In Devil May Cry 3, they decided to triple down on Dante being a massive goofball, and I think it was the best decision they possibly could have made for him. Did you see that flick I just did? Silver to my fucking ass, fuck you. Dante's personality was so off the wall and ridiculous that not only was it fun to watch in isolation, it was even more entertaining to watch him interact with everyone else. My favorite dynamic in the story was between Dante and Lady, because not only did both of them absolutely destroy my Reddit bookmarks, I think they complemented each other super well during their screen time. The way Dante's laid-back, playful attitude contrasted so heavily with Lady's uptight demeanor made the pairing's interactions almost guaranteed to be intriguing to me. Is she gonna shoot him again? This bitch is crazy. Let's see, Dante and Virgil, everyone's already talked about that. Is this 3 Batman jokes about Arkham? Isn't that a little excessive? Listen, this is all boring as fuck and nobody cares. Wanna know what wasn't boring though? The combat is the bread and butter of any Devil May Cry game, but DMC3 evolved the formula pretty substantially in this regard. The most significant change being the introduction of styles: Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, Royal Guard, Quicksilver, and Doppelganger, all of which have their own strengths and weaknesses and introduce a massive amount of potential depth and customizability, and I just used Trickster the entire playthrough because it was the default. Boo fucking who. Yeah, I just didn't care to explore the other styles, and if I'm being honest, I didn't even figure out what Trickster did until like 2 hours into my playthrough. Maybe it's my fault for skipping the tutorial pop-ups, but maybe it's the pop-ups' fault for being so skippable. That's no problem though, because your other offensive options make up for it, right? The actual combo system itself gives you such a wide variety of options to dismantle the NPCs. One could even argue it's stylish.
Monster kill.
Knock the guy in the air, pincer him on the way down, boom bam bop, this dude's doing strings! It provides you an almost endless pool of possible combinations and possible routes, and I also felt pretty mildly about the combos as well. About halfway through the game, I really only used Stinger and the basic 3-hit combo. Maybe mix something else in there if I wanted to season my food a little bit, but that was basically it. So now you're probably asking, well, if you didn't care for the different styles or combo variety, then what did you like about the combat? Listen, even if I did care for the elaborate combos, I wouldn't be able to focus on them too much when I'm so worried about trying not to get ganked in whatever small room I was in. Holy shit! What actually hooked me on DMC3's combat wasn't the combo variety or the styles, it was the fucking intensity. Almost every time you have enemy encounters, they're relentless and frantic. Even some normal enemies have attacks that can and will kill you in a few hits, so you have to stay on your toes because there's no way to bail yourself out. My DMC1 playthrough had the same potential for this experience, but in practice, the game never really compelled me to properly engage with the combat because, well, I could just do this. And it got kind of boring. Devil May Cry 3 was different though. It forced me to participate mentally by weakening the alternative options. So reacting to parries, dodging counterattacks, and anticipating visual cues weren't optional, they were required. And my experience of the game's combat was significantly better because of it. My favorite enemies in the game were definitely the Hell Vanguards. They're these big Grim Reaper looking dudes that have a ton of health and basically serve as mini-bosses. They have a good variety of attacks with different timings, but they weren't so much of a threat to the degree that I was legitimately dreading losing my life whenever I encountered one. They toe this perfect line between requiring your attention to beat, but never feeling unfair or overpowering. It was great. But This is DMC3, and for better or for worse, towing the line isn't really what it's trying to do. The bosses in this game range anywhere from properly challenging and mentally stimulating to difficult at first but eventually become easier after the 20th try, to some of the most unreasonably punishing, borderline unfair bullshit I've ever played in my entire life. And I'll use 3 different bosses to illustrate my point.
Spark it up!
Beowulf is the boss I'd consider the most similar to the Hell Vanguards, in the sense that even though he's challenging and requires your focus, he doesn't have that many attacks, and the ones he does have are telegraphed and straightforward. So if you're thinking on your feet, you can reasonably beat him on the first try. What the fuck? Okay, I died. But it didn't take long for it to become a piece of cake. All of his other moves were simple to avoid if I was paying attention, so this was probably the closest to what I'd consider my preferred type of boss in this game. Nevan is the second type of boss I described, where it's sort of just not realistic to figure out how you're supposed to beat her on your first attempts. Because firstly, you have to actually identify what her gimmick is in the first place. What the fuck? What am I supposed to do? And after you figure out you're supposed to destroy her bat shield to make her vulnerable, you then have to learn the timings and sound cues of her 20 different attacks that all require you to avoid them in different ways. Oh my fucking god. Then once you figured those things out, you have to properly execute it and actually beat her, which, if I'm being honest, took me more attempts than I'd be willing to admit on YouTube, for a few reasons. But at the very least, once you do figure it out, it becomes something of a cakewalk. In the Mission 18 boss rush mode, I tore through her on my first try because I already knew what her gimmicks were, and I wasn't wasting my energy learning the virtual shape sorting game again. So while it wasn't the most fun thing to learn, once you get it down, it isn't rocket science.
Scum.
Virgil. Oh, Virgil, where do I even start? The specific fight I'm talking about is the last one in Mission 20. I died so many times. He does a bunch of damage with every single hit, he lunges super fast, he teleports, his devil trigger lasts forever. I mean, it's like when you're playing superheroes as a kid and that one guy keeps making up bullshit abilities. No, you can't kill me because my character has an ability that makes him invincible and it never runs out. And a bunch of his moves are super drawn out and delayed, so when I thought I dodged them, I actually didn't and I'd get hit anyways, and I mean, ugh. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I beat him, but I never really figured him out, if that makes sense. I sort of just learned how to cheese the AI enough to force a specific interaction that I did know how to deal with and just barely got it done.
Now I'm a little motivated.
Fuck you. So Beowulf was challenging, Nevan was frustrating, and Virgil was bullshit. That's what sets them apart. But what they and a lot of other bosses in this game have in common, though, is that they're really grindy. Whether it's standing around waiting for Nevan's 15-second attack cycle to end, standing around waiting for Virgil's 30-second devil trigger to run out, or standing around mindlessly mashing the square button because Capcom wants to give me tendinitis. Like, I know this game is extreme and all, but the Jester boss in Mission 15 took me over 10 full minutes of uninterrupted mashing because of how large his health pool was. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And this grindiness is something that's pretty pervasive throughout the entire game, not just reserved to the bosses. With these statues, you attack them to break them open to get a blue orb fragment, which works towards increasing your health meter. But you have to sit there and wail on them for 40 full seconds to get them open, and they require specific weapons to break. And if the weapon it needs isn't one of the 2 weapons you're allowed to have selected, you have to walk all the way to one of these checkpoints to switch your weapon, walk all the way back to the statue you came from, then spend almost a minute mincing the marble. And halfway into the game, I just started fucking ignoring them. And this is a one-off thing, but it kind of relates to the grindiness, so I want to talk about it. In Mission 16, after walking up the level into this area, I wasn't really paying attention and fell all the way back down to this bottom section. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, why didn't you pay attention? You walked off the level yourself. And that would be fair if this wasn't literally the only section in the entire game where you can just fall back down to a previous room? Why? And the point I'm trying to make with these examples is that the game sometimes mistakes this excessive, long-winded grindiness for enjoyable challenge, which it isn't. And we keep wrapping back to the same thing about DMC3. The exact same philosophy that creates some of my favorite moments in the game is also responsible for some of my biggest frustrations. But there is one area where I think DMC3's obsession with excess almost always pays off. The presentation. The first thing that struck me was the absolute scale of everything. You're not just wandering through some abandoned castle and backtracking to the same couple rooms anymore. You're climbing the Temeni Groot, this massive elaborate demon tower. It's fucking enormous, and it's basically DMC3's philosophy turned into architecture, Leon Alberti style. What with the massive staircases, giant arenas, and dramatic internal design, every room almost looks like it was built for a final confrontation. And I love the shots where the camera pulls back and shows just how small Dante is in comparison to the rest of the building, both from a design standpoint and the fact that I could actually fucking see what was around me. Okay, so scale, environments, that's all nice and great, but the presentation wouldn't have been elevated to the level it was at without the... The soundtrack in DMC3 was constructed of this bizarre combination of rock, EDM, and industrial metal. What the fuck is industrial metal? And I was specifically a fan of the way the music accentuated the already super fun to watch action scenes. And I could sit here for 30 minutes explaining exactly what I think makes them mesh so well, but that sounds boring as fuck, so look at this. Guitar plus big guns plus cool flips equals cool shit. But it doesn't always have to be a guitar. Virgil's third theme was the only track in the game that was this classical and orchestral. It was my favorite, and it would have been an even better listen for me if Virgil didn't ruin it by being such a pain in the ass.
Now I'm a little...
It communicated to me this sense of understanding of the true gravity of the conflict I was facing, but was motivating in spite of it. And maybe that was what gave me the drive to pick the controller back up after so many deaths. Or maybe it was Virgil's stupid fucking face, your call. You know, the more I think about Devil May Cry 3 after I finish it, the harder it becomes to separate the things I loved from the things that make me want to break my monitor.
I swear.
The same obsession with making everything bigger and more intense gives the game its incredible presentation and engaging combat encounters, also regularly gives me hypertension and early onset osteoporosis. Sometimes it was fucking amazing, and sometimes it wasn't. But one thing I never felt while playing Devil May Cry 3 was bored. DMC3 commits to its identity harder than almost any game I've ever played, to its benefit or to its detriment. It just picks a direction, sends it, and expects you to keep up. And I respect that. If I were to describe Devil May Cry 3 in one word, extreme.